Okay, here's our water bypass tube, and we're going to pop off these old compression seals, and then we're going to wire brush or wire wheel those threads, and then we'll be ready for assembly. We're going to also wire wheel the face of this and blow air through it to make sure that it gets nice and clean and we aren't contaminating the system with anything. Well, that guy's on there pretty good. Okay. Watching your eyes, you want to blast these out. And blast out this. And I've already cleaned the surfaces. So, the next step are the new sealing washers. And you use 2 per bolt. One on each side of the banjo. And sealant. This goes into the water jacket. Okay, your coolant tube goes on a certain way. That's not, the surfaces are not in plane, 2 different planes. So you want to note that. I've already put some sealant on the threads there, because it does go into the water jacket. Get some sealant on this one here. And a new seal. I think a little dirt got on there. Let's like that. Okay. Now I still have this slightly loose so that I can move it around a little bit, because you certainly don't want to cross thread these bolts. There we go. Now I can tighten up everything. That little guy's in the way. I'll have to use an inch wrench. Okay, so as you just saw, I had this started in the threads proper, and I tightened 3 of the bolts, so now that housing is where it belongs. But I'm having to remove this in order to access this bolt. But I know I can fully tighten everything now, because this is perfectly aligned up here, which is what you want, because if you cross thread this, you're in trouble. Okay, which direction does the water pump go? The scalloped out goes where the scallop is here. And again, you put all the bolts in loose first. Don't be tightening any down until you have them all in where they belong. And I've coated with thread sealant all all the threads. Okay, how tight do you tighten without breaking something? It's basically the length of the end wrench with your hand here is how you tighten a bolt. So when you tighten these, it's the length of the end wrench. So if you're using a ratchet, you don't want to be tightening small bolts with your hand out here. Here is where you want to be. That way you can't get in trouble. Because those little bolts you can break right off. Now what I do when I'm showing newbies how to tighten a bolt, I'll set up a nut in the vise and have them tighten it until they break the bolt off. That way they know. And that's the way you really know, is you got to break a few bolts in your life. And then you know that, hey, you don't want to tighten too tight. Okay, I got stuff tightened up, and this would kind of be maybe in my way, so I'm not installing it until now. And I've already completely lined the threads up previously, so I know those are right in the right place. Okay, before we do anything else here, we're going to put this alternator bracket back on because we've got easy access to it. If we put on the thermostat housings, it'd be hard to do. And I put a little bit of oil on the threads. Okay, we cut off a piece, new hose, and you want to Permatex this sealing area right here. You'll never have a problem with leakage if you do this. And now we want to orient our clamps so that in the future you can tighten. So the best bet is to place them forward like that. And then the lower thermostat housing is the next on the agenda. And we've got a new gasket for this. And so we have to do two things kind of at the same time. Get it on the hose and a gasket. I've already cleaned this surface really well. So we're ready for our new gasket. You can get by with using an old gasket sometimes, as long as you haven't damaged it. But you're always better off putting on new gaskets. And the next thing I'm going to do is take a peek with the wire to see if these go into the water jacket. That one doesn't. That one doesn't. So I don't need sealant on those bolt threads. But I do want to wire wheel these threads. Alrighty, I've got, put this light somewhere. There we go. I've got Permatex, both sides of the gasket. Slide this sucker on. And then we gotta have it down just far enough so the bolts go in. If the hose is too long, then you won't be able to get the bolts started. Okay. Then we need to tighten up our clamps. We want to make sure they're still in the proper place. Now, it's real easy to over-tighten hose clamps. You pretty much got to break a couple before you know how much they'll handle. And with hose clamps, after 50, 100 miles, you want to re-tighten them. Okay, now we'll put on a hose here, and we're coming along pretty good.